Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern. You know what that means? You're in the right place. This is the This is the Sports 2.0 show, courtesy of Noop Sports. Michael Hunter, Griffin Carroll, Samir Kumar. I'm Zach Weiss. Guys, how are we today? We're going to be talking a lot of March Madness right out of the gate. You excited or what?
Always excited for March Madness, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Taking that away last year was a shot to morale, so it feels doubly special to have it back.
Man, myself, this is where the magic happens. Guys get their contracts and of how they play here. So many cool things of what happens in March. Our first time to be in games. There's 4 of them. The first one, folks, Texas Southern and Mount St. Mary's, 16 seeds. Michael, we'll start with you. This is going to Texas Southern is the team that the move about, while Mount St. Mary's just ran through the NEC tournament to get where they are now.
Yeah, I'm going Mount St. Mary's here. I think they're playing their best basketball of the season. They just beat a very good Bryant team in the Northeast Conference Tournament Championship. I think you got to ride the hot hand here and kind of fade Texas Southern a little bit. So I'm definitely behind Mount St. Mary's.
All right. It's a
I didn't catch any of that. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no. Are we good now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Samir, who do you have in this game? Texas Southern versus Mount St. Mary's.
To be honest with you, I like Texas Southern in this game, and in particular, I like Michael Weathers. He puts up a solid 16.5 points per game. But not only does he do that, I like versatile players all around. He gets you, some rebounds, some assists. It's good to have multi-level, players with multi-faceted skill sets rather out there, and that's why I like Texas Southern in this one with him leading the way.
Yeah, Michael Weathers averages 17. Another guy, they got John Walker, the third, scores 12. Texas Southern's 14-1 in their last 15 games. Usually when you start 2-7, you're not going to March Madness. Well, not only did they sniff it, they're kind of smelling the pie off the windowsill. They are rejuvenated, 14-1 in the last 15 games. They've looked great. Mount St. Mary's came in at 8-10. They ran through the NEC like it was nobody's business. Now here they are. Shout out Jalen Gibbs averaging 16 a game and Damian Chong Queen 4-5. So I'm also going to ride with Texas Southern. We haven't heard a lot about them other than their appearance in Glory Road. March Madness has never really been their specialty. That win over Kentucky was left up arena. But Griffin, who are you taking? Texas Southern, Mount St. Mary's, game 1.
I'm going to roll with Mount St. Mary's. I'm with Michael on that one. I don't have anything to add, but I'm in on the hot hand.
Yeah, I know. I like that. I love teams that come in hot, which is why the last game we're going to talk about is going to be a pretty easy pick. So game number 2, Battle of 11 seeds. Wichita State. They don't have Ron Baker or Fred Van Vliet anymore, but they have constantly put together terrific seasons. This is a great program. They got 6 guys averaging double digits. Side, we got Drake. Actually, Drake has the 6 double-digit scores. A guy by the name of Tyson Etienne. You had Travis Etienne rocking college football. You had Tyson college basketball. Griffin, we'll start with you on this one. We got Drake. We got Wichita State. Battle of the 11s.
I'm going to roll with Drake. I mean, when I look at teams like this, I'm looking at 3-point percentage and defensive efficiency, and Drake takes the cake over Wichita State at both categories. So I'll roll with Drake.
Samir, who are you riding with in this one?
Riding with Wichita State for no particular reason other than the fact that in the tournament time, they always turn it up. They always bring it, they bring their A game to the tournament each and every year. So, I have no reason to believe why that won't continue.
So, Michael, we got so far, we got 1 for Drake. We got 1 for Wichita State. Who are you riding with here?
The one thing that kind of sticks out to me in this game, and I know Drake, comes into this game with a tremendous record on the season at 25-4. The one thing that is, going to stick out to me, especially come tournament time, is the absence of Shanquan Hemphill, who has been out for about the last month. Drake hasn't really missed him. Yusefu has played very well, especially in the tournament. But, he's their leading scorer on the season. He's obviously a huge part of what they're doing. On the other side, Tyson Etienne averaging about 17 points per game. Al-Tariq Gilbert, a transfer from UConn. Not a great outside shooter, but an experienced guy, averaging career-high steals and assists. And then there's a guy off the bench that used to play at Providence named Ricky Council. not getting a ton of run right now, but he can shoot the heck out of the ball. If he can give them a threat from beyond the three-point line, I like Wichita State chances not only to win in the first round, but possibly move into the second round.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. I hope everything you said, comes to fruition. It's great when you see a transfer that really he wants or needs kind of come in when the game truly matters and gets it done. Hemphill in, Hemphill out, to me, doesn't make any difference in my pick, because when you have a team where you have 5 other guys averaging double figures, it's very rare in college basketball, because you see a lot of the great teams. One team might have a 25, and then 2 or 3 guys averaging 7 to 9. My favorite ones where you got 4 or 5 starters scoring in the low teens, and they're kind of doing that for their team. But I look at Drake, I look at balance. Etienne's great, and all is nice as a floor general, but at the end of the day, I'm riding Drake. So we'll see how this one shakes out, folks. We got 2 more games to talk about. We got a 16 seed battle, Appalachian State at 17 and 11, and Norfolk State at 16 and 7 as a 15 seed. Our great buddy, man, boss, sports genius Eric Neff helped remind me that Norfolk State, as a 15 seed, advanced in the tournament not too long ago over Mississippi. So Appalachian State, Norfolk State. Michael, will go reverse this time. Who are you riding with in this one?
Yeah, Appalachian State, and I don't think it's really all that close. Michael Almanasi is a tremendous talent. And then, as you can see in the background, I'm a G-Tech fan, and Appalachian State has a young man on their roster, a senior guard named Justin Forrest, who is the son of Georgia Tech legend James Forrest, who hit that big shot in the tournament. I'm riding with App State.
I like that. Where are you going with this one?
Did you ask me?
Yeah.
Cut off again. Sorry.
No problem, man.
I'm gonna go with Norfolk in this one. Actually, I'm gonna take Norfolk in this one for one particular reason, and it's the combination of Carter and Bryant. No, not Vince Carter and Kobe Bryant, but but it's Devontae Carter and Joe Bryant that powers the Norfolk State offense. And both of them put up solid scoring averages. They shoot pretty well from the field. And Carter in particular has another player with an all-around game, can pass, rebound. So in a game situation like this, I think both of them are set to take over and get themselves into the tournament.
Yeah, I think you read my notes. Some 2 names I wrote down, Devontae Carter and Joe Bryant Jr. And Kobe's dad is Joe, so maybe there's Bryant bloodline. Who knows? They might somehow be connected. It might have been Kobe's long-lost young nephew or younger brother. But Griffin, who are you riding with in this game? Battle of 16s.
I want to go Norfolk State. I mean, part of it is remembering Kyle O'Quinn all those years ago and knowing they have it in them to at least get 1 win in the tournament. And then again, on paper, they just are better than Appalachian State at a few of these metrics that always draw me in come tournament time. So I'm going Norfolk State.
Yeah, I'm with that. My favorite Norfolk State stat last year, they were 16 and 17. How about in a condensed season? They already tied last year's win total at 16, going 16 and 7. On one side, you got Adrian Delph, Justin Forrest, legend, son of a legend. Not the only one. There's plenty of those throughout March Madness, as we'll talk about in the coming weeks. And Michael Almanasi, 3 assists a game, as with Forrest. On the other side, Carter and Bryant are a tough duo. I think that Appalachian State is more battle-tested, given that they've played more games. They had a bit of a tougher ride to get where they are now, and I think that they're going to end up with a win. So we got 1 game left. I'm going to start and then pass it along to my panel here. We got UCLA, 4 straight losses to Colorado, Oregon, USC, and Oregon State. They're 17 and 9, led by Tiger Campbell, 6 assists a game. Johnny Juzang, 14 a game. You got Cody Riley and Jules Bernard also averaging in double digits. Michigan State, 15 and 12. I'm disappointed immensely by the lack of efficiency, from Joey Hauser and Joshua Langford, who I expected to be a lot better this year. I look at Aaron Henry, who's averaging 15, 6, and 4 with 1.3 steals and blocks. He does everything. And at the end of the day, 15 and 12 and 17 and 9 is not what I'm looking at here. I look at Michigan State and I see, they're barely over 500, but they're not rocking the losing skid that their opponents are. UCLA's dropped 4 straight. I mean, it's very rare in any league. And we're not going to make any comparisons here. You enter March Madness cold and you get the chance to play in, you're going to play well. You're not going to win. Michigan State has the better coach in Tom Izzo, and I think that at the end of the day, Langford was around so many great players in his years. They're all going to be watching. I guarantee he's gotten texts, from the likes of Jaron Jackson and Cassius Winston ahead of this game saying, just do your thing. Forget about the 15-12. So I'm going to go Michigan State. Griffin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go Michigan State. I'm not going to bet against Tom Izzo in March, and that's as simple as it's going to get for me.
All right. Samir, how about you? What you got?
Going to pretty much take a page out of Griffey's book right here and go with Michigan State. Can't bet against Tom Izzo when it comes to March Madness.
And Michael, take us home.
Yeah, I'd make it 4 for 4. The Tom Izzo in March thing, it is a thing for a reason. Aaron Henry is playing maybe the best basketball of his career while UCLA is playing their worst basketball of the season. I think it's going to come down to, can Malik Hall kind of still continue his high level of play? And Michigan State's going to need to get some contributions from guys like Marcus Bingham, Gabe Brown, along with Joey Hauser. And obviously Rocket Watts remains a huge part of what they like to do. I've never really been sold on UCLA, and I think they're kind of starting to show some major cracks in that foundation. I don't think they're long for this tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I can't believe we're finally back. It was around this time last year that folks were outraged that the games weren't going to be happening, that, we've obviously seen over the last year how serious we take this, which is why we're not in the same room. We're in 4 different locations, obviously, but great that they're playing games, and hopefully the bubble works itself out. We're not going to talk positives, positive tests. It's really personal information to these guys. Hopefully everybody that is positive is healthy. They're doing what they can in their hotel room, and they'll be ready to play when the time comes. But fellas, we talked about our picks for the first 4 games, and we might be jumping the gun here, but at the end of the day, everybody wants to know who you have winning your bracket. Are you going to win money on it? Are you going to win Dairy Queen Blizzards? Are you going to win free Subway sandwiches? Or are you just going to win bragging rights over your pal Bob? So, Griffin, we'll start with you. Then we'll go Samir, then Michael, then myself. Tell everybody, Griffin Carroll, a.k.a. Griffey Betts, the money man himself, was winning in Griffin Carroll's bracket.
I crunched a lot of numbers. I'm not going to pretend to have been an avid college basketball watcher this year, but I crunched a ton of numbers looking at efficiency and percentages on both sides of the ball. I'm rolling with Baylor to win it all, and I know they haven't been the same since they had a little COVID outbreak a few weeks ago, but just looking at those 3-point percentages numbers, I mean, it's a team like that. If they can get hot, they can go all the way. And looking at their region, there is some tough teams in Purdue and Wisconsin on the way to the Elite Eight, but no one really has that 3-point defense that can slow them down. So if they can make their shots because they're going to take them, I think they can go all the way. So they're my pick.
All right, Griffin riding with the Baylor Bears. Samir Kumar's national champion is?
I want to say the North Carolina Tar Heels, but this is not their year. So I'm definitely not going to pick them because it's not 2017 and 2016 anymore. So I'm going to go with the team that they beat in 2017, which is the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I think they have 4 great scorers on their roster, over 10 points per game. That's a lot when you consider college basketball, when it's not the same type of scoring that you see in the NBA. So you have 4 capable guys that could put the ball in the basket, and they have just a high-powered offense that can ultimately just carve out defenses that will be ready to game plan for them in the tournament. So I think this is their year. The Bulldogs have been there, but haven't quite been able to, get over the hump in recent years. I think this is their year.
All right, and Michael, your national champion is?
I also say the Gonzaga Bulldogs. And
Let's
while
go.
it may not be North Carolina's year, I think North Carolina has an excellent opportunity to upset Baylor in the second round, which would kind of be too bad because I think we all, as college basketball fans, would want to see Gonzaga Baylor. We didn't get that game back in December. We deserved that game. Those are the best 2 teams in the nation. As far as Gonzaga goes, yeah, everything that Samir said, this team arguably has the best player at their position at 3 positions in Jalen Suggs, Corey Kispert, and Drew Timme. Suggs is my pick to win most outstanding player for this tournament. These guys are almost immune, to steal a phrase from one of my colleagues, from having bad shooting nights. I mean, when one of them's off, 2 other guys step up. They have a lot of shot makers. They're obviously well coached. Right now, they feel like kind of a team of destiny after coming up short the last 10, 12 years. This is the best team that Mark Few's put on the floor, maybe in his career. And I think this team is going to go undefeated and win the national title.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent there. And the fact that this is the best team, given the fact that they've gone into some tournaments undefeated with wins and wins and wins. I mean, the program has been incredible. I remember there was such a long period where after John Stockton, before Adam Morrison, there were just no NBA players coming in from Gonzaga. And now it seems like every year they're getting more and more talent out there. So, you know,
shout out Adam Morrison.
Shout out Adam Morrison. I think he's a farmer now out there on a.
He got 2 rings.
Yeah, he got 2 rings on the Lakers bench after an interesting rookie season in Charlotte. I just liked his mustache. Forget the hair. His mustache, it's kind of like one of those Cartoon Network villain mustache. You kind of just pencil it in.
Who knew that he would be more famous as a GIF than as an NBA basketball player?
I'm getting strong 2006 vibes right now just thinking about Adam Morrison.
Yeah, there's so many great guys, and I'm surprised. I'm not taking them, but I'm surprised none of you picked the Illini because 2005 lost by 5. Luther Head, who had a good career in Houston. Darren Williams, who Samir fell in love with when he was playing with his Nets. And obviously D. Brown, who dunking was in his bloodlines. Anyway, all 3 of them were great. Saw great highlight clips of their run. I'm going against the grain here. And I watch every year March Madness. I watch enough college basketball to make an informed pick. So I might get some oohs and ahs with this one. I posted an Instagram poll. I got 10 people tell me exactly who they had. 1 person agreed with me. I'm going with Iowa.
Come on.
I'm serious here. Look, I think when you have a player as good as Luka Garza, that if he plays well enough and there's no one that can stop him one-on-one, they'll find the shooters around him. I really think that he's good enough to get them their win. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know as much college basketball. I did the same amount of research as Griffin, Samir, Michael, but I'll say this. I didn't just flip a coin and make my picks, which is actually how the people that get perfect brackets do it. You know, they just flip a coin and say, yeah, you know, but I like it. I'm riding Iowa. I see you, Rodney. I see you, Rodney. No,
it's not about whether or not Luka Garza can score points. It's whether or not they can actually stop other teams from scoring points. And they have, you know, they were decent early in the season, and they've completely fallen off in the second half of the season. And they might win some games, but if they can't stop Gonzaga, they can't beat Gonzaga. So,
you know, that's fair. You know, and you know, for me, and I think
it's good to be different. Hey, everybody needs a contrarian.
Of course, there's 2 things. There's 2 things you need to know when you ball games. It's either A, in the team. Some of these comments. Can the team that you're picking to win pull out all the stops offensively? Can they score against anybody? And B, do they have the stopper they need on the defensive side to hold the star on the other team in that game? And look, I see nodding, I see shocks, but I'm still riding with them. You know what? When we think, and here's one thing. Here's my one saving grace. When the Grizzlies 8 seed in the 2010 playoffs, and I was just in high school talking to seniors, I told people, and they laughed at me. I'll say this, and we'll move right back to college and then up and move on to our next subjects. I told seniors that the Memphis Grizzlies, who I think at the time were the 8 or the 9 seed, that they could beat the Lakers, who had Kobe and Powell and whatnot in the first round. Okay? And that might sound crazy. Did you know that the Grizzlies finished as the 8 seed? They played the Spurs, and they beat the Spurs in the first round with the same team. So I'm just saying that.
Did the Grizzlies play defense? Because
they didn't play offense. They only play defense. Defense will be great. Yeah, I see. Defense wins championships. Look, I'm riding with my critique. I'll take my ads. I'm just glad that 1,000 Twitter followers, Mark, because then if I said this, that's when I want to go private. But, you know, I'm sticking with it. But either way, to add on March Madness before we say goodbye to Michael and move on to this week's topics.
I'm sorry. I think you cut out on me there.
Yeah. Anything else? Griffin, Samir, Michael, you guys want to add before we say goodbye to Michael and move on to our next subjects?
Well, I want to just just mention Dan Bradley's point here in terms of what he said, defense wins championships. That's maybe true, but if you're the Brooklyn Nets, that's an exception.
Yeah, we'll have more to say on that. Griffin and Michael, anything else to add?
I would say I've completely fallen in love with Colgate. I put him in my Sweet 16. Just crunching those numbers, that offense. I mean, I know the opponents is not as strong, but they are third in 3-point percentage, third in effective field goal percentage, fifth in efficiency, and then the number one team in stopping the three. I love that out of a 14 seed.
Yep.
So I got him in my Sweet 16. I wanted to put him in my Elite 8, but I had to calm myself down a little bit. I love Colgate.
I like that. Michael, anything else to add?
No, I love them too. That's an upset that I have. I don't have them going to the Sweet 16, but I do have them upsetting Arkansas. I do love Ohio over a recently quarantined Virginia team. John Preston is a heck of a guard. Ohio is excellent, is well coached with Jeff Bowles, former assistant under Thad Matta at Ohio State. That Ohio team is for real, and they could move on to the second round as well.
Yeah, and I'll add this on Colgate. I watched every Holy Cross game this year. Obviously, a few of them were against Colgate. And Jordan Burns, the game they went to overtime, I think he had 3 straight threes. Got ballers on that team.
Shoots 51% from deep. It's insane.
And I believe he's the best player they've ever had as far as most stats would go. But, it's going to be a great tournament. Michael, on for a second time in 4 days. Wish you well and hope you enjoy the games yourself tomorrow night. Guys,
thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, folks. That is Michael Hunter on Twitter at ACCBR1. And as we start to transition, Griffin, Samir, and myself will have plenty to say about plenty of things. And Griffin, we'll start with you. Let's get down into the nitty-gritty. What are you going to be talking to us about this week?
Well, we can go in a few directions. NFL free agency, some NBA bets. Why don't we start with the NBA? Last week was sort of debuting how I was thinking about this bet, and we've had a hell of a 2 weeks. We're 8-2 going into tonight in our last 10 bets, so feeling good. A little reminder, or if anyone missed the first show, what I'm sort of doing here is studying offenses and defenses, of course, but I'm looking at points per game, effective field goal percentage, and efficiency on both sides of the ball. Every team has a ranking 1 to 30 for all three. I'm averaging that out to give one new ranking. So by doing that, I can get a little bit clearer landscape of what offenses are doing well and what defenses are struggling, and then target games ideally where there's 2 poor defenses and at least 1 strong offense for an over-under pick. So I have a few. I had one game already tipped off, so we'll go to the Heat Grizzlies tonight. I actually am taking the under there. We have 2 bottom 10 offenses going against 2 top 10 defenses, which is a recipe for an under. I will warn that the one under pick I picked last week did not hit, but we have to keep testing this. And it's an interesting study on pace. I'd actually love to kick it off to you two on your thoughts on this. The Grizzlies are 4th in pace, and the Heat are 29th. And my brain sort of looks at that and thinks the slower pace is going to control the game. It's going to be easier for them to slow it down than it would be for the Grizzlies to speed up the Heat, which is a slow team. So I'm taking the under there, mostly because of the poor offense and the strong defense, but also that egregious difference in pace. So I don't know how you guys feel about games when there's 2 teams polar opposite like that.
Well, I look at the Heat, and obviously, if anyone doesn't know, I'm a huge Cavs fan. So I was watching very closely how they played Cleveland last night. And the Heat's slow pace, I only worry about the Heat's pace to affect scoring if Jimmy's not in the lineup. Jimmy plays, 30 to 35 minutes. He gets out there, and he gets after it on every possession. And if it's not Jimmy, it's going to be Hero or Dragic creating a good look for somebody. So a lot of half-court teams are scoring, and yes, the Heat play at slow pace. And I don't know exactly where they rank within the top 30 in points scored. But against a team like Memphis, who does have some good perimeter defenders, I do like Miami's ability to cover the over no matter who they're playing because they got good defense. I definitely go over. Jimmy and Bam, plus they got Duncan, Kelly Olynyk out there hitting threes. Doesn't matter who they're playing. They've been shorthanded all season, and they're still winning. They've won, 10 out of 11 now. So I'm riding with the hottest team to get enough points to go over.
I agree. I'm going with the over as well because when you have Jimmy Butler in the lineup, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo have just great chemistry, on the pick and roll. Both of them like to do a lot of their damage inside, but then you got outside shooters like Goran Dragic, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, even Kendrick Nunn and Kelly Olynyk can get hot, as you mentioned, Zach. So I think the Heat just have too many weapons for the Grizzlies to really have to account for in this matchup, and the Heat will hit the over.
Yeah, no
All right,
question.
fair enough. We'll see. I'm taking the under. I have one more tomorrow I like. Keep your eye on the Pelicans Blazers over. Again, it's going to be high. They played last night, 125 to 124. These are two top 10 offenses and two bottom 4 defenses. It's just a perfect recipe for an over. Seeing that they went over yesterday, it's going to be very high. I'm going to take it regardless. And I would tease one more. Keeping an eye on the Knicks spread against the Magic tomorrow, mostly off the back of there's just, again, that egregious difference. The Knicks are the 3rd strongest defense and the Magic are the 2nd worst offense. So that alone is enough to take the Knicks. We'll see if it's close. I mean, the Magic are in the basement and the Knicks are playing well, but if that's a reasonable spread, I'll be taking that as well.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And I'm going to talk about Giannis and his case for MVP. I just want to note to anyone that's watching that might not have known, I got the notification on my phone. The Bucks just got PJ Tucker in a 3-team trade. Rodions Kurucs, PJ Tucker, and a first-round pick to the Bucks. They gave up DJ Augustine, DJ Wilson, a whole lot of picks, and they sent Torrey Craig to Phoenix, which is actually a really nice pickup for the Suns. But I'm going to talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, as he would call him. Giannis is having an incredible season, and I got some numbers for you folks right here. So taking a look, Giannis. Let's look at last season first. He averaged 30 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. He did this in 29 minutes of contest. That's unheard of. The last time a guy was that good playing minutes like that was probably Kawhi on the Spurs. The Spurs are the only team to ever have no player log at least 30 minutes a game for the duration of the season. That was, I think, the 14-15 year, was just resting everybody, split rotation. So Giannis was great last year. And what is he doing this year? 29 points, 12 rebounds, 6.5 assists. He's up 0.3 steals. He's up 0.4 blocks. The Bucks are 10-1 in their last 11. They're 2.5 games behind the Sixers. They're only a game behind the Nets. And the argument is about record, right? Embiid's missing 2 weeks. If the Bucks end up with a better record than the Sixers and possibly the Nuggets, you got to give Giannis the three-peat. And I know people get tired of this narrative of the same guy winning the award again and again and again. But when you're just 2.5 games out of the number 1 spot in the conference, you gotta show some respect. I mean, LeBron hasn't won an MVP 7 years, which is just might be 8 years. It's nuts because we still all call him the best player. We know there's more productive guys, but there's no one that's harder to stop when he really gets going than LeBron. You know, you have to foul him to stop him every single time. And every time you foul him, he gets a bucket. So, but I look at Giannis, again, 29 points, 12 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 1.3 steals, 1.4 blocks. He was not only the number 1 ranked fantasy player coming into the season, I think he's a top 2 NBA player. I'd argue him in the top spot right now. Again, 25-14 doesn't mean the Bucks have been perfect. They had a 5-game losing streak while Drew Holiday was in health and safety protocol. So take all the records this year with a grain of salt. But any of you disagree with Giannis's legitimate MVP case?
I don't disagree, but with this case, I think he very much has a place in the conversation. But you look at a team like the Nets, that are just winning meaningful games against the Lakers, the Clippers, the Suns. They beat the Clippers twice, in a 2-month span. So you got to enter somebody like James Harden in the conversation. I think ever since James Harden has been in Brooklyn, he's really brought the best out of each and every single one of his players. There are a lot of concerns about Landry Shamet, Bruce Brown, DeAndre Jordan, and so on and so forth when the Nets brought them in, in the offseason. DeAndre Jordan came in 2019 with Kyrie and KD, but Shamet just looked like he was a bust, from the get-go. And Bruce Brown wasn't getting regular rotation minutes, early on in the season. All of a sudden, when you get James Harden into the mix, those guys got involved. Bruce Brown has really embraced his role as pretty much a center on offense. He runs the pick and roll well with Harden. He, you know, he's really good on the short roll. He can get his floater, near the free throw line, or just cut to the rim and get easy buckets inside. Harden's unlocked Bruce Brown and made him one of the more efficient players in the league. So, with scoring off the ball. And he's done that with Jeff Green, Joe Harris, DeAndre Jordan, Nicholas Claxton. The list goes on. So Harden's impact in Brooklyn pretty much from day one has been apparent, and the Nets have been able to weather the storm with Kevin Durant being out of the lineup for the last 10 plus games. It's James Harden being out there has made it easier on the team to weather the storm without arguably the game's second best player.
Yeah, Griffin, what are some of your thoughts on the beard and how he's been in Brooklyn? Because I look at James Harden, and I just think, wow, this is the same guy that came into the year out of shape. He was partying with Lil Baby and Da Baby in Atlanta instead of reporting. All of a sudden, he's in the best shape of his life, and now he's an MVP candidate again.
I would love to know the history of a guy switching teams and switching conferences and winning an MVP. I can't imagine that list is very long, if even existing at all. It helps that KD's been out for a little bit, and LeBron won MVP when he was on the Heat, right? So that kind of defunks the super team myth that they sort of take away from each other. So I'm not going to discount it. There's definitely still some season left, and with the East so open, if the Nets can just take control of that conference, that'll help his case. I think Giannis, there's voter fatigue is real. I can't imagine he would win again. Even if he upped his stats by 2 each, maybe blocks and steals, that'd be pretty impressive. But I don't know. I'd love a fresh face like Embiid or Jokic. Give it to some centers that are on some top 3 teams. But it's going to be an interesting last few months of the season, that's for sure. My Luka MVP ticket that I put in the summer looks awful right about now. So I think I lit that money on fire.
Well, that's not your fault. Luka's still having a great season. Just the Mavs aren't winning, and he's the only player on the team that's untouchable in trades. So that's not you. You couldn't have predicted that. You still. I think you made a good pick because the numbers he put up last year, not even able to legally drink his favorite Slovenian beverage in America yet, put up the numbers he did. He's incredible. I'm wearing my Maverick socks right now. So I'm not going to bring them onto the screen, but he's got game. He's got some serious game, and I think that. I was thinking the same thing you were about guys switching teams winning the award, and we'll do some research as we go here. But, I think that Samir does have a good point. I think that his buddy Vince Carter might have felt a little slighted in 2005, huh?
Oh, boy. Yes, I think Vince Carter was absolutely robbed in 2005. And you know why? Because he came from a bad situation in Toronto, a very bad situation in Toronto. And, players only have one career that they can look back on and be proud of. And anytime a team is not putting their star player in the best possible position to win a championship, they have every right to ask for a new situation, because guess what? There are 29 other teams that will willingly take you on, given the fact that you're Vince Carter, and put a situation around you that will help you win games. Now, did the Nets ever win a championship with Vince Carter in the fold? No, but they made the playoffs with Vince Carter in the fold. And you know why? Because Vince Carter literally set the world on fire for his first 2 or 3 seasons in Brooklyn. Not Brooklyn, in New Jersey. I'm too used to saying Brooklyn at this point. And, looking back at my 12-year-old self, I would slap myself across the face if I ever called the New Jersey Nets the Brooklyn Nets. But looking back in particular in the 2005 season where Vince Carter was traded to the Nets were in the bottom of the East, and the Nets, they were a proud team for the last few years prior to that, making the NBA Finals 2 consecutive years, with Jason Kidd turning that team around, and then Kenyon Martin and Richard Jefferson establishing themselves as young stars in the league. And that's on the rise. And then they lost Kenyon Martin. Things and Jason Kidd obviously got hurt to start that year. Things were looking tough. Nets were looking like one of the worst teams in the league. Enter Vince Carter. All of a sudden, man, he was putting up consistently 30 points a night, taking home player of the month honors, doing things that we've never even seen from him in his career, and he was outperforming guys that a lot of people consider better players than him. He was outperforming Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, all these players that were perennial MVP candidates for that stretch of the 2004-2005 season. So that right there tells me that Vince Carter was robbed, and carrying a team from literally 10 games out of the 8th seed, before he was there. And I think for like the first week or two when he was there, they were still significantly out of the playoff race, like 10 games out. But that was not to any fault of Vince Carter. He was doing his thing, scoring the ball, getting his teammates involved, and then finally the Nets started to catch lightning in a bottle when February came around, and then March came around. The Nets were able to take 15 of their last 20 games of the season and clinch a playoff spot in their very last game of the season, beating the Boston Celtics and knocking out LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Samir, that was. Do you know what's funny? I'm from New Jersey. I live in New Jersey. The day I stopped liking the Nets was that very day, 82. All the Celtics had to do was win, and I think the Nets were down by 15, if I remember correctly, in that game. They were getting destroyed. Then all of a sudden, they just turn it on. The Celtics blew it. So the Nets not lose. The Nets won, so I stopped liking the Nets because they won one game. That obviously changed, but it's funny that we're directly connected, Griffin, Samir, and I, through that one game 15 years ago, which is why we don't like the same team that we do. I'm a Cavs fan. He's a Nets fan.
Sorry for my long ramble, but I'm just gonna wrap it up here and say that Vince Carter was robbed in 2005 after carrying the Nets to the playoffs after being 10 games out of the 8th seed, and he should have been MVP. And we should learn through the times to reward players for being a difference maker in a new situation after coming from a bad situation. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm with that. But let's Vince. We talked about Giannis. We've talked about names that we can never spell on paper. Let's talk about some football. NFL has been wild. I mean, AJ Green going to Arizona today. You got the Patriots signing every guy we've ever heard of. Hassan Riddick going to the Panthers to become a sack machine on a team that's going to do better. The Bears chose Anderson over Russell Wilson, who didn't want to go there. Griffin, start with you. Some of the moves that you've liked, and perhaps an anticipation move of someone that hasn't signed yet and might.
Yeah, obviously the Patriots are getting a lot of buzz. I mean, they're shelling out a ton of money. And listen, I'm not going to pretend to like the Patriots at all, but there's that mantra that, Bill's playing chess while everyone plays checkers. And I think there's some logic to that. The cap has been seriously deflated this year because of COVID and no fans in the stadiums. So they're shelling out money now when next year the cap is going to skyrocket, when not only are people coming back into the stadiums, but they're likely moving to a 17-game schedule, which is really just a gateway drug to an 18-game schedule. And when that happens, salaries are going to skyrocket. The cap's going to go up even more. So, the Bill and the Pats shelling out all this money, it looks weird on paper, but I think in a year or two, these contracts are going to be a bargain. And I'm a sucker for some tight ends. So the fact they got the two best ones in free agency, I like it. I think it's still weird they're building around Cam, but I'll give them another year. The biggest surprise is how soft the wide receiver market has been so far. It seems like everyone's playing chicken besides Corey Davis signing with the Jets. Kenny Galladay's out there, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, which is sort of like a Swiss Army knife guy, and Juju Smith-Schuster. It seems like I can't tell if they're all waiting for Galladay to sign the biggest deal with somebody so they can get theirs, or if Galladay's waiting for someone else to set the market. But the fact they haven't been signed yet, when you think about the makeup of a team beyond a quarterback and offensive and defensive lines, I think wide receivers right there is the most important. So there's some good guys still out there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm sure we'll get some clarity in a few days.
Yeah, I expect my Baltimore Ravens to start making some kind of noise because the receiver position is the one of weakness on that roster. mean, Hollywood Brown is great, but they haven't been able to pair anyone with him in the last 2 years. Whenever a good receiver comes to Baltimore, they don't get enough targets, they get unhappy, and they leave. But John Brown was a kind of an under-the-radar signing today. I think that was an interesting one. I believe he went to the Raiders, who are doing all sorts of things. I love Kyle Long. He's back. He took a year got healthy. I didn't think he was coming back, but I guess the guys that retire spontaneously can return at any time with no questions asked. The Chiefs let a couple of big-name guys go when they're going up there, I guess, trying to save some money. So they bring in Kyle Long for, $5 million a year for 1 year. So I'm happy for him that he gets this opportunity. The Patriots have just been incredible. I mean, I can't pretend to like them, but I don't dislike them as I used to, Griffin. So that's changed for me. Take a look, and we've seen some very interesting moves. A.J. Green and DeAndre Hopkins. Kyler Murray, I think, is going to make a few less mistakes now that he has a second top receiver to throw to. I think he had a break the last 2 years. He didn't play years ago, and then last year he was in and out, so he didn't have to work too hard on a team. Once Joe Burrow got hurt, they basically just said, we'll win one game on Monday night and then be done. But they're good. I think Larry comes back, Larry Fitzgerald. I like what the Cardinals are doing. Very curious to see how the Jaguars shape up. They've made a lot of big moves. Griffin is going to be really nice in their secondary. They're going to draft a QB. Gardner Minshew can get them a mid-level pick. I mean, you're talking about another nice piece they can bring in the draft. And, I'm curious to see what happens. I think Galladay ends up going to the Giants to replace his old buddy Golden Tate. And then, we'll see. A team I think that's gotten better, Miami. Washington's picking up Fitzmagic. I mean, hope it's not a Fitztragic story when all is said and done. I hope he stays healthy. I hope he has a great year. But I'd say that's my big surprise. Washington getting Fitz and the Cardinals getting A.J. Green. But, Samir, here's some football thoughts from you, my man.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys pretty much said a lot of the thoughts that would come to mind. The Patriots, making some moves. I think they're hungry to really just kind of build up their team again and compete for a Super Bowl after seeing Tom Brady go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and win a Super Bowl in his very first season there. I think the Patriots want to show that they can still win without Tom Brady. So, Patriots are putting their money very much where their mouth is or where their desires are. But, something that's, I think, really getting traction, in the last few hours or so, is that the Giants are in on Kenny Golladay. I think that'd be a big-time pickup for the Giants. They desperately need a wide receiver that can make the big plays. They've been missing that since they lost Odell Beckham Jr. Darius Slayton's a good wide receiver, but he's not good enough to be like your number one. He's not good enough to make you a play and go get you the football, down the stretch when you need it most. He's more of a complementary wide receiver where, there's more, loose coverage on him and he can kind of go up and catch the ball or, he gets open in the end zone. I think, Darius Slayton's better as a complementary wide receiver, whereas Kenny Golladay can make the big play in the end zone and can, can have games where he has 10 plus receptions and 100 plus receiving yards on any given night, and not night, like any given Sunday rather. And I think Daniel Jones needs a weapon in order to take that next step as an NFL QB. Daniel Jones is known for throwing a lot of interceptions, getting a lot of turnovers. But having Saquon coming back and having Kenny Golladay potentially in the mix could potentially open things up for the Giants. So I think that's something to keep your eyes out for.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun next couple weeks. And folks, we didn't talk about it today. It doesn't mean we forgot. If nothing happens with the Deshaun Watson movement in Houston, if nothing else happens, we're going to be on first thing. It's going to be the opening topic. You heard it here, the first topic of next week, Deshaun Watson and the stalemate in Houston. The city of Houston went, guys, from being just all about the champions. The Rockets were right there every year. The Astros are winning World Series, and you had the Texans were a perennial playoff team, and all of a sudden, Watson wants out. Ownership turns out to have some issues off the field. James Harden wants out. Chris Paul becomes unhappy. Russell Westbrook wants out. Turns out the Astros were cheating the whole time. Houston, everyone's either, Houston, we have a problem, or Houston, you're cleared for landing. Over. It's always one or the other with every team that they have. But, I'm excited to talk about Watson next week. Samir and Griffin, any closing thoughts as we say goodbye to our viewers and end the show?
Let's just enjoy March Madness. Find yourself a couch and some nice libations and some food, and let's sit back and enjoy 4 days of nonstop hoops.
Amen.
Totally with you right there, Griffey. And for all you guys that were listening through my passionate Vince Carter rant, I thank you for sitting through that. I can go on for 10 minutes, if not more, on that. So I'm glad you guys were able to cut me off before I got too deep into that.
Honestly, if you didn't set me up for the Cavs comment there, I might have just let you keep going. So I guess shout out to you for allowing me to jump in. But for Griffin and for Samir, for Michael Hunter, who was great having him on, for our producers, from on air to produce, they do everything. Tanner Kern and Dan Bradley, shout out to you guys. Eric Neff, Ryan Newpel, Rodney Newpel, the entire network, everybody. To everyone that commented, we appreciate you giving us more debate topics, for making fun of my Iowa pick. Iowa, what? Whatever. I'll get over it. When they win the championship, we'll see who's laughing. And if they lose in the first round, you'll be laughing at me. And you'll be sending postage to my house saying, turn it over. You picked Iowa, ha ha ha. But whatever. It's gonna be fun for everybody. For Griffin, Samir, Tanner, Dan. Appreciate everybody. I am Zach. What is gonna do it for this edition of the Sports 2.0 show? You already know where to find us. You'll find us on Twitter, on Instagram, and get this, Spotify, Apple Music /iTunes, whatever tickles your fancy when you're saying it. If you want to call it iTunes, Apple Music, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, we're there. Look us up, Sports 2.0 show. So I'm Zach Weiss. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. For the production team, we'll see you in 7 days.